Well, Sarah, thank you so much for being here with me on the Entrepreneurial Success Podcast. I'm really excited to have this conversation with you and just see where it takes us, because I know all the good stuff is going to come and the audience are really going to appreciate hearing some of this. Before we get started, why don't I hand over to you so you can introduce yourself and tell us what you do?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to get stuck in. So, I'm Sarah. I'm a career change coach. I help people, women predominantly, who feel stuck in their career to either pivot and find a different career, another 9 to 5, or to set up that business. So, very much understanding what it is that they want from their career or from their new business, if they want to go and explore being an entrepreneur. But it's that exploration process to help people to feel fulfilled, to define success, what success is to them, and to leave the job that they may have either fallen into or started because they've done a degree in it or because it's what their parents told them. But 5 years later, 10 years later, 20 years later, find that it's actually not what they still want to do and they don't love it, but they don't really know how else to kind of go about changing. So I work with people kind of one-to-one, an online course to help them make that change and discover a job that they want to get up for and that they're excited to actually do on a Monday morning, and they don't have the Sunday scaries, you know?
I know we've all been there,
Oh,
but
yes, we
this
have.
this this is why I'm so excited to have you here, because I know that people who are listening to my podcast are either in that stage now where they're like, I need a change. I want to move, either find another job or start my own thing. Or I have women who's already gone down that road, but now also they are at a crossroad where they need to pivot into something else. So either way, I think it all comes down to just, how do I do it? What is that clarity in order for me to at least take a step? Doesn't matter which direction it is, and just needs to be a step. Before we dive into all of that, tell us a little bit about you. How did you become a career coach? What is your story like?
Yeah, so a long, long time ago when I was at university, so I did study, I've got a master's degree in psychology, so I've always been interested in behavior. When I left, I worked alongside life coaches, which gave me the into coaching itself, working with the British military in a rehabilitation setting. So it was a combination of adaptive sports, and it was all about people that were potentially leaving the military and going into a career. So always find change in itself really fascinating. And then I moved to London and I made a bit of a kind of switch and worked doing research and evaluation within the charity sector. And I just found myself kind of not feeling completely aligned to the situation I was in. And although it was working for a charity and there were very good elements of the role, there was just something that didn't quite sit. And I thought, I don't really know what I want to do. I don't really know how else to get there. So I ended up training and deciding to actually formally train as a coach. And so I remember going to the training event and just deciding I was going to do it. And that was, a couple of years ago now. And I just knew that it was the right thing to do. And I kind of worked out over the course of building a business, what are the core elements that make me happy in my job? And actually, when you work those out, you can create your career and you can create a life that you want. And sometimes you just need a bit of help working that out. And so that's kind of my background in terms of coaching and academics and psychology, but also why I support women to change careers, because I had just fallen into that role. It was, came through a conversation out of university, and I then got experience in it. And although the job itself is great, there were elements that I wanted to explore of my personality that I couldn't necessarily do just in a 9 to 5. And one of the core values of mine is freedom and travel. And I couldn't do that working in a 9 to 5, going to the office, 5 days a week. So some things in my career have also been accelerated by the pandemic in a positive way, in a very positive way, actually. So it's been a long journey of realization and building my own career, which is always changing. It's never stuck, it's never stagnant. I think that goes as well with defining success, that we'll come on to, I'm sure, later. If success changes, and actually at that point, success might have been getting a job in London, and now it might be a bit different.
Let's talk about success for a little bit. I want to go straight into this because I think, when we talk about success, everybody has got their own variation of it. Why is it so important for us to define what success looks like for us as individuals? From your perspective, what would you share?
So I think what you said there is really important is we've all got our own definitions, but we need to define it because we don't always know. We kind of have a sense. We know in our core what that might actually be, but when was the last time you wrote down your definition of success? When was the last time you actually thought about what it looks like for you? And it's so important because it's so easy to get so bombarded with other people's definition of success. You see it all the time. You see podcasts, you see social media, you see the news. It's all about other people excelling at something. And it's so easy to then compare yourself to that person, but actually it doesn't mean that what the success they've gained actually has any relevance to your life or is something you'd want. That the consequences of like being in that position might have massive consequences, fame, those kinds of things might be something you actually don't want in your own life, but you can allow it to make you feel bad. And actually it can be so easy to veer off and get clouded with other people's definition of success because you're not completely clear on what it means for you. And then sometimes you might implement things, especially in business, that don't align with what you actually want as success because you're kind of funneled by business coaches, social media, all of those things. You're funneled by, okay, hit that 10K month, okay, achieve that. That actually might not be your definition of success. I don't think do I want 100K months? And do I need that right now? Actually, I'd probably feel really swamped and overwhelmed if I started having that kind of success in inverted commas, because that would come with so much responsibility and so much time requirements, things I actually don't have. So it's important to define it so that you know what you're working towards, so that you can stay in your lane and not get sidetracked by shiny new objects, which I'm all about the new shiny objects. Oh, that sounds fun, let's do that. And actually, by having that clarity over what success is, really helps me recognize that I'm doing the right thing, and actually does that fit with the alignment and the business strategy that I want. Actually, no, it doesn't, or yes, it does. And it just helps you stay in your own lane. And I think the other reason that it's important to define success is that I sort of touched on earlier, is that just because it's important to someone else, it doesn't mean that it has to be important to you. And so you just working out what it is for you can just help you, right, in your business, sort of say, actually, does that fit with where I want to go? And I'm working with a client at the moment, and she was kind of berating herself for not achieving something in the business. And I was like, but actually, what is success to you? And I posed a question to her as a coach, and knowing already why she set the business up, and it was one of her primary goals was to spend time with her family, which this is allowing her to do. So success allows you to also check in and recognize how far you've come based on what's important to you. And even for me, so if she checked in, she recognized that actually she had the time with her family, she was picking the kids up from school, she had the summer holidays, she wasn't working the ridiculous hours, and that's you already living success, not aiming for something in the future. And for me, when I defined and recognized the success metrics of my business, and one of them being freedom and travel, I stopped aiming towards that and actually recognized I was already living it. And then therefore I wasn't just suddenly all these goals that then you kind of hit, and then you think, oh, right, okay, so what? I've hit 100K, okay, great, so what? Actually, what's important to me is freedom and travel, and I'm going to spend a month in the Middle East in March because I've set my business up. So by defining the elements of success, it means that you can actually appreciate the things that you've already got as well. So there's so many reasons to define success, and not only just define them, but check in with them. When you are feeling like you're not hitting those kind of KPIs that you might have set yourself in business, remember actually what it is giving you, and actually that's what I want. It's so much more important for me to be able to travel than it is to, and I keep coming back to that because, and I'm sure, I think we'll come on to this in a minute, but that's often what the metrics are that you see
Yes.
all over
A
social media.
figure.
Are pretty
Yes.
triggering for, I think, a lot of people, having coached people in new businesses, coaches, worked, run a business for 2 or 3 years myself, and talked to other coaches about kind of that big social media presence.
Yeah. I love what you're sharing there about the success, about, understanding what success means to you, but also living it. And it's so interesting that you shared that, because I was in a networking meeting, I think it was last week actually. And one of the questions was there, what does success look like to you? And for me, I was sitting there thinking, and for me, instantly, I just realized, for me, it's checking in every week. What did I accomplish this week that is taking me to that big goal? But then what I've accomplished that week is my success point, basically. And exactly what you shared there about living it. At the end of that week, and I looked at it, I was like, oh my gosh, yes. So I've been successful this week because I've reached what I set out to do. And now I am living it. I'm experiencing it. I'm excited to move on to the next point. So I love how you're putting that together, because for everybody, it is different. For some people, they've got what they call the big, hairy, audacious goals, as we all know, and people are constantly working towards that. But I think this is where the problem comes in, because people then go, well, I'm not successful yet. I'm working towards, but I'm not there yet. But I love what you're sharing about taking it back, living it right here, right now. And that's kind of like why I had this big smile on my face, because without even knowing it, that's what I've been doing. I've been breaking it down, and every week successfully living what it is that I'm setting out to do.
Yeah, I love it, because you can't always aim for something. Success is a feeling.
Yes.
You've got to feel successful. And if you can define that, and I love how you've broken it down, I think that's so important, because it's not to say those goals are wrong and you can still have them. Business is technically, in my perspective, but in my opinion, everyone's got financial goals. Okay, so it's not about saying I'm not hitting that. It's about saying, did I grow? And comparing your success from yourself. Like, if you're going to compare to anything, compare to previous months or compare to previous years. I was doing some of my finances this morning, and I was checking Q1 to Q1 last year. That's my growth, because then I'm focused on my definitions and success and breaking it down and comparing to myself and staying in my own lane, but also breaking it down in smaller months, not kind of getting to the end of the year and saying, oh, did I hit that? And also, I love how you break it down every week and you live it, because then you're making success a bigger kind of part. Success is built on more than just 1 or 2 goals.
Exactly.
If you're working towards just like success and it's over in the future, then that's kind of like, you're only defining that by 1 or 2 things, right? You haven't thought about 20 things. So if you can do it by the week, you recognize all the small things you're doing. And actually, I think that's where the gold is, that you're sort of saying, right, I was successful because I did. And even in personal life, I worked out 3 times this week. I did this week. Yeah. That was success for me. And it's that reflection piece.
Exactly. No matter how big or small that piece is, it is at least something that you feel you've accomplished. And I love how we're putting it together, because, turning that on its head, I think this also goes the other way, whereby we look at other people's success and then we start comparing ourselves. Now, I've seen this so many times, especially with the clients that I'm working with, but like, oh my gosh, look at these people. They're making it. They're really doing it. Look at social media. But I promise you, if you have a conversation with those people that they idolize on social media, you will find that their values and what they see themselves as a successful person or a business owner or whatever that might be is so far and beyond different from how you see it. But let's talk about this a little bit, because, it's easier said than done. Don't compare yourself to other people. But isn't that the hardest thing in the world?
Yes. And I think you raised such a good point, because I think sometimes as well, it's not only not to compare yourself, but it's that tipping point of someone being inspirational,
Yes,
and pushing you to actually, is that triggering me and it's not helpful?
Yeah.
And people can cross that boundaries. I've worked with people, business coaches, and that I stopped following. because, and so what I'm saying there is that it doesn't matter, even if at one point someone was really inspirational, it can tip into unhelpful.
Yeah.
And you've got to have that self-awareness when you're noticing that. So I used to find somebody like really, really inspiring who I used to work with. And she was in the leadership team, really articulate, also a mother, coming back from maternity leave, and just had a really nice presence. And I really admired her. And that's really helpful. Yeah. I completely think that you should spend time with people that elevate you, that bring you up, that inspire you. However, at times I was using that tipped into an unhelpful comparison of success. And I thought, do I even want to be in that room? I'm not sure I do. But also, she's probably put all that work in to get there. So I'm comparing my chapter, starting this job 2 months in at the lowest level, to someone probably 10 years my senior, who's probably done all that work to get there. And it's having that self-awareness to recognize that where you're comparing yourself to someone else, they're very, very different journeys. Mm-hmm. And do you even want that? Yeah, it's okay to be inspired, great, but also check in with, do you want to be at that table? Do you want to be doing what that person's doing? And if so, great. But then remember that they've taken a long time working to get there. And I think it's the same with business and this is a thing that I've kind of learned over the last couple of years of running a coaching business is, and even with clients changing careers, it's their journey, they're years later. And I've watched coaches grow. I've watched a lot of new coaches grow in the industry who have gone from sort of their marketing's been very kind of neutral, very interesting. And then it's tipped into the 10K months, that typical stuff, which is great. But what I've realized is it doesn't always say that it's taken them 3 years to get there full time, building a podcast and running all the tests and spending loads of money on ads and all those things. It just makes it so you're comparing again to something that's not necessarily even the whole picture. And that's where I find it, for me, a bit dangerous but also quite useful in that I've seen the growth and I've seen that they've put all this foundational work in that they might talk about in their content. I can't say I follow it enough, but it's sometimes when you see it without the context, that is when it becomes quite difficult to sort of separate yourself from it. And then it comes back to defining your own success metrics.
Yeah.
I couldn't, when I get approached all the time, don't you? And people say, get DM'd, do you want 10K months? Well, no, I don't at this moment, because I actually only have 2 days a week. And so even though, I might strive to have that might be, I couldn't actually physically do that right now. So they assume that everyone has this metric of success, that everyone can do it. And they kind of put it in this little light bulb that you can reach it. It's like the carrot, isn't it? You can get that. And I think, well, I physically actually couldn't. I don't want to charge more than I'm charging right now. I'm okay with that. I'm living authentically a very high value. Like my offer is very, very high value, and I like that. That's authentic to me, and I'm okay with that. That for me is more important than doubling my prices to get to the 10K months right now, for example.
Yeah,
and that's because I know my measure of success, that I've stopped being super, super triggered by, I do, but how do I get there? I don't know. All of that I've kind of put to one side. I think something you said about it's easier said than done. Before this, I was having a little think, and I remembered to myself that I actually, at one point, and a lot of people, some people do this on social media, I know this, I actually unfollowed a lot of people on their stories through, I've got a lot of time for a lot of them. I think they're inspiring. I think I've got a massive amount of respect. I think I could learn lots. But I just found that I was spending time that wasn't helpful by watching all of their content. I stopped being in my own lane, even for half an hour. But that half an hour, 3 or 4 times a week, is
through you.
The opportunity cost of not putting that time in the business, because I was clickbaited by social media, as you do. It's the purpose of it, right? You go through and you watch a story and you watch a story and you watch a story. And don't get me wrong, I produce stories all the time, but I found it distracting and then not helpful. I made the executive decision a year ago or so now to actually just unfollow, because I didn't want to learn from them. I work with a business coach all the time. I go and seek someone out and I'll do some research. Great. But I just found it like white noise.
Yeah.
Or probably not white noise, but just noise.
One of my mentors said actually to me one day, he said, remember to use social media, not be used by it. And I was like, oh my gosh. Good. But, one of the things you shared there, which is very important, and I resonate with it personally, is the reason why I say it's easier said than done, because even it's something I still struggle with, but I've gotten better at it. And I will say that. As an example, just recently, last week, following this inspirational woman, and she's constantly talking about doing so amazing in a business, and she's reaching all of these how many K months, and I was like, that's amazing, it's really inspiring. And then you kind of feel like, gosh, why am I not there? But at the same time, when because I know her a bit better, and because I know what it is that she's doing, what she's doing is not aligned with me. It's not how I run my business. And just because of that, I find myself that even though I get those, posts or things, and I see what she's doing, and I'm like, wow, yeah, I'm not able to do that yet, or I'm not there yet. But what she's doing is not aligned with me. I can't take her strategy and make it mine and then hope to get that level of success where she's at financially. And that is something that I've kind of trained myself at as well. When I see these people, I need to understand, are they doing the things that I could do, which will be aligned with me? And if not, same like you, unfollow. Because I will only follow the people that are doing things that I feel would be aligned with me as well.
Yeah. And I think there's also, that's such a good point. And I think with that is, you can refollow when, if and when they are doing something. If there's a part of your business, so for example, you want to set up a podcast, you might want to follow those people that do that help you to deliver that. And that's okay to reach back out and follow when it's helpful. But otherwise, I think it's so important to, and you're so right, it's training yourself, and nobody gets it right all the time at all, but training yourself to notice when and where you're being triggered the most.
Yes.
And then saying to yourself, okay, what's the best approach here? And you'll have moments where you are kind of more triggered by certain things than others, depending on how your business month has gone. If you're having a tough month in business, I wouldn't recommend to go and be used by social media. But if you're having a good month and you find that things that, like, comments like that, inspirational, and you're like, okay, I've got this, this is the end goal, okay, I can get there, great. But also recognizing that in yourself, even within your hormonal cycle, right? Recognizing the time, certain times of the month that you may or may not want to focus on things like that and be exposed to things like that. And the reason I sort of unfollowed was a little bit like taking food. If you're trying to lose weight, I don't go to the shop and buy it, so it's not in the cupboard, so I don't see it. Out of sight, out of mind. Take it away, and then I don't have to try and even work with my emotional state or think about it. I just kind of, and actually for me it was 50% comparison, 50% time I wasn't spending doing my actual work. So it was, that's part of the reason I actually unfollowed a lot of people, to be honest.
No, it's really interesting, and I love your take on it. I mean, we could talk about social media forever, because I think there's so many elements that people just, this is why they create social media, because we are being habituated in order to sit on it, right? Just a silly example for me in particular, in the mornings when I get up, I don't grab my phone. I am a huge believer in sitting and meditating as soon as I get up. And my phone will only start going on when I sit in front of my computer. And then even then, during the day, I don't go on social media. I'll only at the end of the day, once I sit down, I've finished my day, completed everything, I'll go, okay, let's just quickly see what is happening on social media. But then I'm very strict. Forgive me, people. I am a bit of a freak. I only give myself 10 minutes on social media. Otherwise, that's it. I will be used by social media. So I'm very strict myself, but purely because of what you said, I'm very cautious about where my energy is and where I'm using it.
Yeah. I wish I was more disciplined. I'm a little bit less.
I'm a
I
bit of a
try
freak.
No, I think it's actually, you have a certain amount of hours in the day.
Yeah.
And if someone said to you, would you like 10 hours a month back, which is probably the bare minimum, about 15, however many minutes a day, it's not that much, you'd probably say yes.
Mm-hmm.
If someone said, do you want a day off work a week? And you said yes, just give up Instagram. There's so many benefits to actually being more disciplined with social media. But
like we said, that's a story for another day, because we can definitely talk about that forever. One of the things that I also just quickly want to touch up here is, we spoke about the definition of success anyway, but I do find that a lot of people feel that the definition of success is related to that financial goal. And also, this is just something that I just want to literally spell out here for the audience in particular, for those of you listening or watching this video. Remember what we said about that definition of success, what it looks like to you, living it on a daily basis, or at least on a weekly basis. But be very careful not to just have the definition of success based on a figure. Or even so, if you are employed and if you are working in a role, in a career, and thinking, I want X amount of money, so I've got to really fight for this new job role, or I really got to fight to get this managerial role, because then I get these extra benefits and I can get more money. And remember, it's not about that. All of these levels that we're going through in life is just stepping stones to take us somewhere where we feel, very important, feel we have reached a certain success. And whatever that feeling is for you, whatever that definition is for you, is really important. So I'm sorry, I hope you don't mind, Sarah, but I just wanted to spell that out, because I've seen this time and time again. And then people set goals. I want 10K months. They don't reach those goals. They feel like a failure.
Yes.
And you're back to square one.
Yes. No, it's such an important reflection to make. So thank you so much for spelling that out. And I think to kind of anyone that's listening, if that's something that you want to build as your definition of success, ask yourself to find a minimum of 5 things that are important to you beyond the figure, and it could be personal. I have health goals, I have financial goals, I have business goals, I have career goals. And actually one of my goals is learning, staying up to date and learning something. And then I'm working towards, my success isn't defined by one thing, because when that doesn't go well, then you feel worse. And actually, I even say this about your career: don't have all your eggs in one basket. Don't just focus on just your career with your goals. Have both. Have hobbies. If you want to run, set goals there. And so for me, one of my goals this year was run a half marathon, so that my success is very, very spread, and it's not then the emotional ups and downs of running a business. They're not as, or even in your career, they're not as kind of the highs and the lows, because they're not. Everything isn't focused on one thing, and it's focused on lots of things. And then it's so much nicer, because even if you haven't had such a great week or such a great month in one area, that's okay, because feeling successful is linked to all the other areas of your life as well. And that could be even spending time with your family. I have, one of mine is social, and actually, how much time have I committed to friends and family that month? Okay, I've been successful. Good. That's good. And I feel good. I feel successful.
That's the perfect conclusion. That's the perfect conclusion. Oh my gosh, I just love having this conversation with you. And this is what I love, just having people like yourself on the podcast. And we just have such a great way of talking. And I know the audience is loving this, and they are making tons of notes. But before we come to the end, everybody here listening, obviously, want to know how they can get in touch with you. But before we give those details to them, you have got an amazing new online course. And I know that this is not just going to help people who are thinking about careers, but also businesses. So tell us a little bit about this online course. What is it that they can get and expect from there?
Yes, thank you. So I have just released a brand new online course, and it is to help people who feel stuck and unhappy in their careers, but don't know how to change. They don't know what else they could do, or they've got a couple of ideas, but they don't know how to get there. So they just feel stuck in this kind of cycle of, I don't like my job, but I don't know what else. But I don't like my job, but what else? A bit of overwhelm, analysis paralysis. I could do everything. I don't know where to start. This course takes you through designing your career, discovering something that you love, and breaking down the steps so that you get clarity and you don't have overwhelm. Instead, you have a clear path of goals, and there's scripts to save you time so you can network and you know the questions that you're going to ask. So it's a combination of videos and handbooks that you can even do it in your own time. You haven't even got to do a certain amount every week. And then there's a community, a group, and group coaching as well that will accompany it if you want it.
No, that's great. And this comes back to what we said literally in the beginning of our podcast is that clarity. Because once you have that clarity, you know what are the steps that you need to take. And I think this is the big one for us. What is our clarity? We all want some sense of clarity in something. And if you can offer that through the online course, then for those of you listening, I would suggest if you're at that moment now where you're at a crossroad and you go, don't know, I'm feeling a bit stuck, want another career, or maybe do I go and start my own business? You're feeling that could be an option for you. Then I would suggest that you get in touch with Sarah and you obviously go and check out that online course. I had a look at it. I know it's amazing, and I know it would be a great benefit for you as well. So the link for the online course is in my show notes. You can obviously go and have a look there. And then if you want to get in touch with Sarah directly, you can obviously connect with her via LinkedIn and via Instagram, and those details will be in the show notes as well. But apart from that, my gosh, Sarah, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time being here. Thank you so much for an amazing conversation. And I guess we'll be in touch very soon again. And maybe we should go and talk about something else, because I just feel we've got a great vibe between us.
Yes, that would be really cool. Yes, another topic.
Sarah, thank you again. I really appreciate it. And we'll be in touch soon.
Thank you so much for such a great conversation.